So last week on Twitter, I put out that I was going to be giving Zenonzard a try. I had first understood what it was when Duel Links Meta did an ad video for them. When I first saw it, I thought the game looked a little too busy, if that makes sense. Like, it looked like a lot was going on. After watching a couple minutes of the gameplay, though, I did recognize some of the screenshots, and that was because my boy Rodney over on Cardfight Vision had been posting about it. Going back to my post on Twitter, Rodney was actually one of the first people to hit me up. He gave me some basic pointers and some re-rolling goals. Stormcrow Central also pointed me in the direction of Aibo. I hope I'm saying that name right, but I had first heard about him actually from his buddy fight content. Like, he was a well-known player. He is currently using his content to bust out some like Zenonzard content, and it's pretty good. I like it. Now, before we go any further into this video, I should probably put like a disclaimer here that I'm only rank 11. I'm still like in bronze ranking. I'm only just been like casually playing, just hitting my daily goals and just trying to enjoy the game without taking it too seriously. So this isn't from a competitive standpoint. This is more from a casual first impressions. For the most part, I will be comparing some of my experiences to Vanguard Zero because it is the most recent online card game that I've started playing, and because I don't remember like how Duel Links was at the beginning. So just starting out in the game, the re-rolling aspect is quite easy. So on Vanguard Zero, to re-roll, you would not get your packs until after you've completed the tutorial. So after you would open your packs and decided that you didn't get enough triple rares, to re-roll, you'd have to delete your account, redo the tutorial, open your packs again, delete your account, do the tutorial, repeat. It wasn't horrible, but I definitely remember having to re-roll like 15 times on my original account. So having to complete the tutorial 15 times was quite frustrating. In Zenonzard, you get your packs right out the get-go. You do have a little prompt at the beginning that you get to read, but after reading it one time, you can just skip it. And from there, you get your 10 packs, open them up. The deleting the account's a little harder than it was on Vanguard Zero, but once you get the data deleted, just re-roll and you can just keep going. You do have to open the packs individually, which is a little weird, but for the most part, it's pretty good. I was told from Rodney and Aibo that aiming for about 4 to 5 legendaries is kind of the goal, because in Zenonzard, there is this great resource mechanic of breaking and making cards. It's very similar to Shadowverse, where you can break any card that you have, and you can make any card with this material. It seems like it's very common for people to break every card that they're not using so that they can create a competitive deck right from the get-go. Comparing this to Vanguard is like night and day, because on Zero, you can only break foils, and then you only get materials of that rarity. So if you break a double rare, you get double rare materials, and if you break a triple rare, you get triple rare materials, and only in that clan. So it does make it easier to make multiple decks in that way. That's the advantage. But when you're just trying to make 1 or 2 competitive builds, it's quite frustrating, actually. So I'm a big fan of this. More games should be doing this kind of whole single pool pile of breaking materials. How many cards have you opened a pack and you're like, I'm never going to use this? When in games like this and in Shadowverse, you can just break it apart. Yeah, we all have our opinions on that. Like I said in my previous video about the sad departure of Buddy Fight, one thing I look for is if it has an anime. Not that a game needs an anime to be good, it's just kind of nice to see what the atmosphere is that the game takes place in. The anime is quite interesting, actually. The first episode is the only one that runs for a full 30 minutes. It follows the 2 main protagonists, the Concords, and their codemen. Concords are the players, and the codemen are the AI. I'll talk more about that in detail in a second. But after the first episode, it mainly just follows the codemen. I guess this is so you are more invested in them as characters and less as like waifus or husbandos. And like I said, these episodes are actually a lot shorter. They're about 10 to 15 minutes long. This does make it a little easier to go through them. They do seem to come out less often than a regular anime. One is released about every month. This does give you something to look forward to, I guess. I really like the formula that the show follows, especially on the most recent episode, which I think is episode 4, where it follows the cop AI and the thief AI. The episode follows them playing a game in a underground gambling ring. They do this very unique shot that I've never seen in another card anime, where right before the game starts, it'll show both their deck lists, so you know what they're playing and not have to like write it down and then look it up online later. Now, like the one gripe I have with the anime is it never actually shows the gameplay in full or like explains what's going on in the game. So there's no points of strategy shared, and there's no real style to their decisions in the game. You're only really ever told that these players are good, and you see them win or lose. You never actually see what decisions they made in the game to help them get to that point. I don't want it to like copy Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's basically 3/4 of an episode is a game. I think it would be nice to have a middle ground between that and like how Vanguard does it, where it kind of skips the boring like starting, getting your mana all going, and kind of gets right into where like the decisions of points are made in the game. This way gameplay is showed and you keep it brief, so it's kind of the best of both worlds, I imagine, but that's more just like personal taste. Overall, I'm a fan of the show. I'll keep watching it. Now, the hook of the game is the integration of these AI partners called Codeman. So after opening your packs and rerolling your account, you will be given a very basic questionnaire. You are then given a list of the 16 Codemen and are told your compatibility with each of them. You are, however, allowed to select whichever one you'd like. I, for some reason, had a 99% compatibility with the Idol AI and the Costume AI. I don't know what the game is trying to tell me. I decided on Charlotte Seams because she seemed the coolest out of all the ones that I had a 90% plus compatibility with. Now, how they work with the game itself is that they kind of work as your partner. They will give you tips on what to play and can even autoplay for you. When you first partner up with them, they will have a very basic understanding of the game, just like yourself. See, now this is where I think the game gets like really interesting, is that after each game, it'll give you a line graph. On this line graph, it'll put out points of where you did good, where you did bad, and giving you really good turning points on which turn exactly maybe you did a really great play, or maybe where you did a really bad play, and then it just from there just goes completely to the bottom. So with this information, your Codeman will grow with you, helping you fix mistakes that you seem to be making a lot, and to also learn your play style. So if you typically play aggro, the AI will kind of learn to not tell you always to hold off your mana, to tell you maybe we should push for game here. So now the cards themselves, like I said, when I first saw them, they looked really busy. Like the card text looked a little weird and the framing looked a little tight. But after getting to play with them more, I don't know if I love them, but I've grown accustomed to it. I can totally understand what they were going for. Like I said, the card frame reminds me a lot of like Duel Masters especially, while the art on the card themselves give me a big like Shadowverse feel. You know what I mean? Like, you know, these beautiful pieces of art can be on these cards, these immaculate dragons and creatures, and then at the same time have big titty anime girls, you know? This game is very similar to Magic and Force of Will and other such games that use colored mana as a resource and deck building mechanic. Usually in these games, there's 5 colors. In this game, there's 6. There is red, blue, green, white, purple, and yellow. There's also black, which is like your generic color. Each of these colors is based off of a nation in this world. You can build your deck to have any combination of colors that you'd like. Just know that similar to Magic and Force of Will, you're going to need mana of that specific color to play it. So maybe picking a 5-color deck isn't very smart in this game. Typically, I see people playing monocolor or one specific and then a splash of another. During my rerolling, I stopped around my 6th because I opened only 3 legendaries, but one of these legendaries really caught my eye. That was Vice Rave, the King. I get he's not used a lot. It seems like when they made him that he was meant for like the very first set, and then he kind of gets power creeped. But when I just pulled him out of the pack, I was just in awe of the art. I saw him on the anime, but didn't really get the same feel that this one picture did for me. He just gives such like a Zoid feel, if you've ever seen that anime with, the big like lion mech. This is when I learned that the color white is represented by the nation of machines. So after kind of digging a little more, a lot of the white cards I had pulled had these like beautiful dynamic pieces of art for these like gorgeous robots. Now this is true for all the colors. They are all beautiful and immaculate in their own way, but the machines just really caught my eye for this game. Now in terms of gameplay, it is most similar to Magic for me, so that is where I will be drawing my comparisons. But dude, jumping from Vanguard to this game, it's like crazy. Now, similar to most games, the goal is to lower your opponent's life to 0. Now, this is where the craziness of forces come in. While building your deck, you can select 2 forces, which will act as like a permanent enchantment from turn 1. These give you some like crazy OP abilities, like all damage you take is reduced by 1, untapping all of your mana every turn, untapping all of your creatures, giving all of your monsters on the board plus 100. Like these are like game breaking abilities, but since both players have access to them, it feels quite fair. Now these forces have a life of their own. It seems like the stronger the force, the more health it has. Now you start the game with a pool of 10 health. If your force has a health of 4 and a health of 3, that will leave you with a health of 3. This allows for some crazy deck brewing and crazy gameplay, and I'm a big fan of it. Now the mana system in this game is also quite unique. Similar to Magic, how you have lands, you will have cards in your hand that can be placed in your mana and will give you mana of that specific color. Now there are like basic cards, but typically these decks play 8 to 9 of these crazy do something when laid cards. Like most of them add a unit to your hand. Some of them can power up units on your board. They're quite crazy when you actually look at them in comparison to like what land does in Magic. Now if you don't have one of these in your hand, you can gain a generic mana for free. Now there will be a lot of turns where you will want to lay a generic mana over a color in your hand, because a lot of cards have an on place ability that trigger if it was placed on the same turn that a color mana was placed. And then there's also this kind of like mechanic inside of that called movement, where you can move a card on your board into your mana, and if it is one of color, it adds that color to your mana. Typically the low cost ones enter tap, but it's still ramp, and it's pretty crazy. You can also move one from your mana outside back onto the board, so this can add a layer of protection for your units. This mechanic of movement adds ramp, protection, color fixing. It's pretty crazy. Now when you place a unit, they will have something similar to like Summoning Sickness, where they can't attack your opponent, but they can attack their forces. If a force's life goes to 0, they can't fix it, and they lose access to that force's ability. When both forces are destroyed, any card that is summoned can attack the opponent directly that turn. Now, timing, I think, is important when destroying forces. I'm not completely sure, because when a force is destroyed, the opponent gets to place any mana from inside their deck onto the board directly, and then they get to draw a card. So they get to ramp and plus. So it feels like if you do that too early, you can kind of maybe give them an advantage on a turn. I'm not exactly sure. I think the force you're destroying is important, and how early in the game you need it out of the way is also important. Now, this isn't like, I'm not trying to give tips on how to play. I'm just kind of talking more of just general points of interest for the game. Now, with like my final thoughts, I have a lot of fun playing this game. Now, like, it can get kind of crazy, and sometimes I'm just not in the mood for that. But the dynamics that this game introduces is like nothing I've ever got to play before, especially because it capitalizes on the idea of being like a virtual card game, but like still works in a physical one. Like you can like print the cards out on their website and play whenever you want with your friends. I hope more people get to join the community and play around with it, because I think that this game has something. I think just more people need to get their hands on it and experience it for it to kind of catch on. It doesn't help that all the advertising is making it sound like an anime card game, when I think it's a lot more than that. It feels like it was made with like a lot of love and attention. It feels weird making this video right after my video of the end of Buddy Fight, but it feels really good to me at the same time because it feels like there's still love and growth in this industry of card games. Like, it doesn't feel like people are trying just to do the same thing over and over again. Like, there is growth and there is creativity still. Now, once again, shout out to Rodney from Cardfight Vision for being my friend and helping me out. Shout out to Aibo for making like really good Zenonzard content and helping me kind of get my footing right at the start of the game. If you are interested in playing, please check out his channel. If you've already started playing, please let me know in the comment, like, what colors are you playing? Are you enjoying it? What rank are you? Also, if you could let me know if you are interested in this game, I'm more than happy to like maybe make more content or like deck lists that I've been working on. I'd really love to hear from you guys. And if you're not playing, I don't know, tell me how Pokemon's going if you're playing, or have you tried the Isle of Armor DLC? Because, you know, me and my girlfriend have been playing it. It's really fun. Yeah, I never know how to end these. That's all I got.